Prediction markets are taking over. Whether you've been on Polymarket, whether you've been on Kalshi, hopefully you've had a chance to kind of check out what prediction markets are. Even if you don't bet money on prediction markets, which we're going to get into, that this is not financial advice and this is edutainment. I think using prediction markets to predict the future is a really, really great thing. I think that they're more accurate than polls, and we found that out now multiple times over political polls, because when someone's going to take their money and say, I think this person's going to win this election, for me now, that means way more than someone just having said that. When you put your money where your mouth is, I just am going to believe that more. So with that, prediction markets are taking over. Today, I want to talk about some Bitcoin Kalshi plays, things that I'm looking at, some undervalued alpha. This is not financial advice. This is edutainment. Before we do that, let's look at Bitcoin today, because one of the reasons why I think I have had such success betting on Bitcoin with Kalshi is just because I'm into it. If you watch this channel, we talk a lot about Bitcoin. Maybe you're into Bitcoin, and so I think because you know about it, you should really only invest in what you know about. And some would say betting is not investment. I completely agree. This is so gambling, but I think it's really important to talk about because I've been able to make some money on this, and I was asked to kind of make a video on this, and I was like, okay, I guess I'll do it. But once again, not financial advice. This is edutainment. Let's zoom out and look at Bitcoin here. So Bitcoin right now is 115.6. I took the screenshot not a couple minutes ago. It is September 14th, Sunday. I wanted to zoom out. These show the arrows. You have the 2017 top. The second arrow is the 2021 top. And then you have the question mark. I wanted to kind of ground us in where we are within the Bitcoin cycle. Understanding where we are in the Bitcoin cycle is really, really important. Now, people will say we no longer have a cycle. My thought, and I will make a video on this, is that we have a cycle until we don't. I think we have a 4-year cycle until maybe Bitcoin continues to ramp up in 2026, and we'll get into why. But until that, I think we have a cycle, and we're kind of coming towards the end of that cycle. This is a year outlook. The first arrow on the left is when Donald Trump was elected. Markets exploded, not just Bitcoin markets. Then you had the second arrow. This is tariffs finally taking their toll. You just saw this big drop. It went down, got pretty bearish into the spring, and then over the summer, it's kind of gone up, as it normally would in this 4-year cycle. Looking at the stock to flow, now this has kind of lost favor among a lot of people in Bitcoin, but I still think it's relevant only because of the colors. If you look on the right-hand side, you'll see that the closer we are to red, the closer we are to have just had the halving. Once again, this is assuming that there's a 4-year cycle. Then the closer we get to purple at the bottom, this is the closer we are to about to have, like the halving is going to happen. So somewhere in between there is the sweet spot where it's green. And you can see the peaks from 2013, 2017, and 2021. Whenever it's green, it being Bitcoin in the stock to flow, is when you're going to get the highest points. We've seen that now 3 times. I think it's going to happen again. And in that world, we're in the last 2 to 3 months where I think right before we get to that green point. So it's a very sensitive point because no one's ever going to probably sell at the top. You want to sell at about 80% of the top. These are my Bitcoin predictions that I put out maybe a year and a half ago or 2 years ago. That 2024, we're going to have 100K Bitcoin. That did happen. 2025, we're going to have a 225K Bitcoin. So far, we're far from that. I love to be wrong because then I learn. We'll see. We've still got about 100 days, 110 days left in the year to see if that Bitcoin prediction comes true. Looking back at historical data, once again, I want to ground us in this historical data so then when we look at some of the bets, it's got a little bit more context around it. We're not just like picking, A or B, right? So 2013, 2017, 2021, if we look at the month of September, it is in red, okay? Zooming in on 2021, it went down the last time 7%. Now it exploded in October, had a great, great, great October, made up for it. And I think, even though historically in bull run years in 2013, 2017, 2021, we have seen it go down, it being the Bitcoin price. I think this year, now we're going to get into Bitcoin Kalshi plays, because of the Federal Reserve. This is the macro. This is the things we need to understand when we look at some of these bets. If the Federal Reserve cuts rates, you may see a reversal. It may go red in 2013 in September, red in 2017 in September, red in 2021 in September, and then in 2025, it may be green. The context will always be that, oh, wow, the Feds started to cut rates, started to show the market that, hey, money was going to be cheap and easy again. People started buying more assets. So the Fed. And if we look at Kalshi today, there's $190 million saying that the Fed is going to cut basis points by 87%. I truly look at Kalshi and Polymarket when I start to make decisions now. Because when people put their money up, when they put their money where their mouth is, I believe their opinions more. So I do believe that we will see a Fed rate. Knowing that, and this is an assumption, right? This is not financial advice, but this is an assumption. You should never really like build castles on assumptions, like building your castle on sand, for a metaphor. But that's the assumption we're going to build, and that's the assumption we're going to take throughout the rest of this episode. If there is a rate cut, then with Bitcoin being 100 and let's call it 16,000 today, I totally think we get over 130,000 by the end of the year. And right now, if you bet $100 on Kalshi, you could win $54. I think that's pretty good. It's 54%. That's what it would take in a TradFi market index fund 4 or 5 years to do. Maybe less, depending upon the compounding. But, multiple years, I think you can get that right now. I'm highly surprised at how undervalued this is. 140, I also think is super in play if they cut rates. The other thing, and I didn't add this in, but there's many people on Kalshi, you can bet on there's going to be 2 rate cuts, 3 rate cuts, 4 rate cuts. There's many people thinking there's going to be at least 2 to 3 rate cuts. If there's 2 to 3 rate cuts, you can mark me and you can roast me on this if I'm wrong on X. If there's 2 to 3 rate cuts between now, today, September 14th, and the end of the year or 2026, I think Bitcoin is definitely going over 140 and it's going over 150. Just wanted to give you an example. Here's 180. You put $100 into the machine. You win, you get 764. 180 starts to get in the realm of we need trillions of dollars to come in, but I still think that 130, 140, 150 are totally in play, especially if we have 2 or 3 rate cuts and the Fed is basically starts to signal that they're going to start to drop rate cuts into 2026. People are then going to want to start to front run the Fed and get more sats for cheaper before we get into 2026. This is a screenshot of what all of the statistics look like for Bitcoin. If the Bitcoin price hits this, it's 12% chance, 10% chance, 8%, all the way down to if it hits 500,000 by the end of the year, which I do not think is going to happen, 2% chance. Zooming in on that more, I have money at 150, maybe it's like $50, but I got in early enough so it pays back like 10 to 1, 9 to 1. And so I think that that's great, but I wanted to call it out, want to be really transparent with everyone that I do have money on that. And then I also have money on 225 and 250. Now, I think when I put money on 250, it wouldn't even let me do 50. I think it was like the max, or I had to do 30 to be able to put money. So Kalshi's definitely not trying to get over their skis. They don't want someone to put down like $10,000 that's going to happen, because they're going to have to pay out a lot of money. But you can see there's a bunch of stuff to do. I do think up to 150 is totally in play with 2 to 3 rate cuts. And if we go back, I just think that this is super undervalued. Even this. So that's if you put $10,000 in, you're going to make $5,400. And I think if there's a rate cut on Wednesday, that is totally in play. Once again, this is by the end of the year, end of 2025. So those are pretty undervalued ideas. Then we also have, this is another one that I think is super undervalued. When will Bitcoin hit 125K? Now, mind you that Bitcoin's all-time high is 124, like 7 or something like that. So it's been right there. Will that happen by the end of September? Really tough to tell. If they cut 25 basis points, I think it gets close. I think it's much closer than 1 in 3.3 essentially, right? 1 pays back 3.3. I think it's probably like 1 pays back 2 if they cut rates, but I think it'd be close by the end of October. By the end of September, before October. But I wanted to show you this because there's also bets you can make that are month to month, before November, before December, before the end of the year, before February now. They've now launched new ones that are Bitcoin price before February, which I think is interesting. They also have this. How low will Bitcoin get this year? We've been talking really bullishly. Oh my God, Bitcoin's going to go to the moon. Oh my God, 500,000, 300,000, whatever. But there's also the side that if they don't cut rates, because they're worried about inflation, they want to keep the economy where it is, not overheating, I do think it could go under 100,000. And in that world, you put in $100, you get out basically $98. I'm not going to talk about taxes here, so you get out $98. You could take that too. Some people are hedging. Some people are saying it's going to go crazy up, and some people are also saying, hey, it also could go under, trying to hedge their bets. That's a different game. I'm not really going to get into that, but I wanted to show you this on the other side. I wanted to show you this one, which is a little bit more time sensitive, before October 2025, because these are by the end of the year, okay? And then I wanted to show you this that says, hey, it could also go down. So what do you think is the most undervalued bet? Maybe you have some things you've seen. There's other stuff on Kalshi. Maybe you're already on Kalshi. You're looking at this. You've already started to do this. I know a good amount of people in crypto and Bitcoin that are looking at this, and they know Ethereum, or they know Solana, or they know Bitcoin, and they're just like, wow, These things are super undervalued. For me, if they cut rates, if that's our assumption, this before October 2025, I think is totally in play. I think Bitcoin will go up probably 10,000 in a week if they cut rates, because people are just going to say, oh my God, the market is changing. The Fed is signaling the cheap money could be back. I want to get ahead. And I think probably crack 125. And that's pretty good. You put in $100 and you make 233, right? After you pay yourself out back what you had to put up for the gamble here. Once again, this is a gamble. This is not investing. I'll say that till I'm blue in the face, but I think this one is super, super undervalued. And there's some other ones on there that are more time sensitive as well, or excuse me, that are like by the end of October, by the end of November. Once again, if you assume that they cut rates, I think this one's good for the money. But what do you think? What do you think is the most undervalued? I'm going to leave a link, and I've never, ever done this on this channel, but I want to do it. I'm going to leave a link. I have my Kalshi link. I share it with friends all the time because they're like, oh, once again, they'll get on and they don't even bet. They just want to see and understand where people are thinking about the economy, about politics, about crypto, about Bitcoin, about the stock market, about sports. Even some of the lines on sports are a little bit different on Kalshi. It's very, very interesting. But I will leave a referral code down in this episodes at the bottom here, so you can go check that out. You get $10 free on Kalshi. Be sweet. So follow on Future Signal XYZ. Follow us on wherever you are on socials. If you enjoyed this, and if you enjoyed this, please go ahead and subscribe. It would mean the world. And also let me know what you think about Kalshi in the comments. I'm going to do another video that talks about some of my strategy on Kalshi, where I also don't have to win bets to still make money, which is another really interesting thing that I think exists more on Kalshi than it does on other betting services. So anyways, hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you're having a great Sunday. And let's see, I do expect Fed to cut rates. Let's see what Jerome Powell does. I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks.